Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks to the organisers for inviting me here. I think my disclosure is I know very little about rare diseases, but what I do know is about trials methodology. I've been working with the Health Research Board Trials Methodology Research Network for over 10 years now. So what I'm going to talk today about is a study within a trial, and really this type of methodological work is applicable to all trials in any field, in any area. So a bit of a background, this is nothing new to anyone who's a trialist, all of the uncertainties that we face when we're designing and conducting research. And obviously when trials aren't working as well as we would like, or there's something poor within that design or conduct, it limits that evidence that's available for guiding clinical care. So I suppose the rationale around this methodological work then is by embedding methodology studies in trials, we can help resolve some of these uncertainties that we face as trialists. Despite hundreds of thousands of trials in different fields, there are probably only a few hundred studies that assess the effects of different methods for how we actually do trials and all of those different processes that's involved in trials. So embedding these studies within a trial offers a means of assessing these uncertainties and trying to resolve them. So that really is where knowing all this, and we're all well used to it as trialists, but this is what led to the establishment of the SWAT program. The SWAT program is a separate type of program with similarities. It's around studies within reviews, and that's about looking at when we're conducting evidence synthesis and systematic reviews, are there better ways of doing those elements of undertaking a systematic review? But today's focus really is on the SWAT program. So this was established going back about 12 or 13 years now by Professor Mike Clark in Queen's University, Belfast, through the MRC network of hubs in the UK. So it's been going for some time. But I think what we're seeing now is much more momentum in terms of the value that embedding these studies within trials offers us as trialists. So we can see now that repository link that I just showed you. The last time I checked, there was about 235 SWATs registered. So this is a registry for SWATs, and anyone who is interested in this area and embedding studies within your trial around the methodological processes, the first port of call I would advise is definitely this repository. It can give you ideas, but you can see there some of the areas that's being looked at is applicable to lots of different, trials. Use of telephones with a text message or WhatsApp, does that help with recruitment and retention and so forth and so forth. So there's lots of examples up there now. Just, I suppose, since the establishment of the repository and the network, there has been a considerable growth, and I'm just giving some examples here through the NIHR, Trial Forge, which is based in Scotland in the University of Aberdeen. There's a lot of guidance come out in the last year around doing your SWAT, reporting your SWAT, and then the University of York as well is linked with Trial Forge in terms of their SWAT centre. So I think, as I said, there's a lot of momentum occurring in this area of embedding these studies within trials, in probably the last 4 or 5 years, certainly. To define a SWAT then, what exactly am I talking about? So it's a self-contained research study that has been embedded within a host trial to evaluate different alternative ways of doing particular aspects of that trial process. So the key features are it seeks to resolve important uncertainties. It must be embedded in a host trial. There are, I suppose, other areas of thinking about studies that are not trials, per se, observational studies, and we do want to improve elements of how we go about those, but the SWAT program is particular to trials and embedding the methodology study in a trial. It must not affect the scientific integrity of the host trial. So it doesn't change anything about the host trial per se in terms of the science around it, the sort of analysis, that kind of thing. It's more about just testing processes. It should have a formal protocol. So often when I'm doing SWATs, I will still register my SWAT with the SWAT repository, but also with a trial registry, like the ISRCTN, when my SWAT is a randomized trial within a trial, if you like. So use of those registries as well is important. And the idea is it will provide data to inform the design and conduct of future trials, but also it may provide data for making decisions around processes within your ongoing host trial. So they're the key features, and I guess just to give an example, I might give a case example of a SWAT that I embedded into a trial that was running many years ago. It was pregnancy, being a midwife. This trial was in maternity care. We were looking at different ways of monitoring and assessing babies' heartbeat in women who come in with signs of labour. But you can see from that wee graph I've put up there that, like many trials, I've undertaken the target, and we were quite conservative with our monthly targets in terms of 80 women across 3 sites in Ireland per month. We were recruiting well below that. And during that time, while these recruitment challenges were presented to us, we were undertaking lots of responsive activities. So, random site visits, use of incentives, in terms of because this was a 24/7 recruitment trial, and it was with women who were presenting with signs of labour. So it's quite a challenging time, I think, to recruit. But it was like that, sort of running lottos or raffle tickets and things like that for the midwives that were involved. And also then things like enhanced communication. And I think we do these sort of things, but do we know they really work when we're undertaking them in response to poor or slow recruitment? So that's where the idea of this very first SWAT came from, the effectiveness of a site visit intervention on recruitment rates in a multi-centre randomised controlled trial. And essentially what this SWAT was looking at was, in Site A, the intervention itself was a targeted site visit, so not just something ad hoc that the PI and research assistants were doing. It was targeted, and it was combined with a formal meeting that was purposely arranged to discuss recruitment rates. It involved a 15-minute presentation on recruitment trends, followed by a discussion on the challenges and how these might be overcome. The control sites were the other 2 centres, Site B and C, where there was no targeted visit in that similar way. We looked at difference in recruitment in each of the sites, A versus B plus C, from 1 month and 3 months pre and post, and then change in adherence. So just to give an example of what that looked like, in a general sense, the percentage target recruitment, you can see the arrow up the centre is, the black arrow is the date that the visit took place, which was late June. And the intervention site, Site A, is the blue line there. And you can see how after the intervention, the recruitment started to drastically increase quite quickly, but not as sustainably. So that was an important lesson too. So looking at 1 month, we had just within site, so just looking at Site A, there was a significant change from pre to post at 1 month in terms of recruitment, and similarly at 3 months. In Site B and C, which were our control sites, they just stayed static. There was no change in the recruitment there, any significant change, I suppose I should say. When we looked at between site recruitment, so this was Site A versus B at 1 and 3 months, we could see that it was lower in Site A at 1 month than Site B and C, but then it moved up to being no difference. But then at the 3 months, where we saw that there was no difference pre, it was significantly higher in Site A versus B plus C at 3 months after. So basically the message there is that this intervention was working. It was having an effect on recruitment rates to the trial. It had a prolonged to 3 months, so increase quite quickly at 1 month, which prolonged to 3 months. But it would have been nice to maybe introduce it again at 6 months, because this trial was over 4 years, and see what those effects in terms of longer term. But it gives you an insight into how embedding these type of formal studies within trials gives us insight into what works or not, because a lot of ad hoc site visits were going on, but really they weren't having an effect, whereas a targeted site visit was. So it's just something we thought we need to build into future trial processes. The incremental value then of replicating SWATs is that they can, it's a bit like, building the evidence for an evidence synthesis or a systematic review. We can use the data from these SWATs to synthesize for that sort of higher level evidence that we may achieve and see what's working or not working. So an example here of that is the patient designed and informed PIL versus standard. And there's quite a few SWATs on the repository that are either completed or ongoing in this area, if people are interested in this. But what this some research undertook a systematic review of the data from 6 SWATs that were already published, providing data on recruitment around the use of different formats of PILs. And what they found was that the optimized information resulted in little to no difference. So that's really just the forest plot of the trials that were involved there in this. And as you can see, no significant difference. And what that's telling me then as well, if I am thinking about my PIL, really should I be investing time in trying to optimize one or not? Maybe there's something else in the trial processes that I need to focus on to, make better, if you like. Maybe the PIL is not really having an impact. Well, this is showing it's not. But that's the more SWATs we have on these things, the higher level evidence we can achieve around our trial processes. So just to sort of finish up, those who may be interested in undertaking a SWAT, there's just sort of 2 pathways here that we're suggesting. Is one, obviously, first port of call, have a look at the SWAT registry, see if your idea is already registered, and if it is, no problem. That's where we move to pathway 2. If it's not already registered, then there is a form there, and it's about registering your SWAT through the processes that are outlined in the SWAT repository. Replicating then is really about linking in with those maybe who were the originators of the SWAT idea and replicating that SWAT in some way, even if there is some adaptation to it. And then just to mention, I've just taken some examples sort of in the UK and Ireland. I think the fact now the Health Research Board has, I suppose, emphasising the value of SWATs in their current call that's out, the investigator-led clinical trials programme. Within that, they will provide additional funding for embedding your sub-study. So if people are interested in this call, it might be worth thinking about embedding a SWAT within that as well. The previous iteration of this, which was the DIFA, they had 20,000 available specifically for SWATs. The Trials Methodology, HRB Trials Methodology Research Network also offers SWAT funding annually. They have invested over 160,000 through the past 10 years in funding SWATs, and then there's the University of York also. So it's just to flag those opportunities. I know they're very Irish-based, and I know this is an international conference, but just to flag too, there may be other things in other countries that I mightn't be aware of. So thank you. That's me on time.